Hi, I'm Brian Kellerman, the co-founder and Chief Food Safety Officer at Kellerman Consulting, and you are watching our video series on corrective and preventive actions. In this video, we are going to look deeper into properly documenting deviations and errors, as well as the documentation of root cause investigations for why those deviations or errors occurred. We will also cover the documentation of corrections, corrective actions, and preventive actions taken when these situations occur. Oftentimes during operations, errors, mishaps, and non-conformances are addressed in real time, but there is no attempt to record these events for some obvious reasons. The most important of which is that non-conformances are frustrating and upsetting, and fixes are stressful and time-sensitive. Taking more time to sit down and document the events can be the last thing we want to do when fixing the problem. So let's talk about why we need to take that extra documentation step. When we observe a non-conforming event, the instinct is to focus on the fact that the problem occurred, and most of the time we want to conceal or minimize that. However, when we fix these problems, we are proving that we are capable of both identifying and correcting problems when they occur. This is really important to prove to ourselves, our employees, and to outside parties such as regulators or auditors. When I work with clients that tell me they don't have any non-conformances or errors, or that they don't have an opportunity to record them, this is not something that I am impressed with. Quite the opposite. Every facility, no matter the size, type, or complexity, experiences errors. If you are not currently documenting these errors, it only shows that you aren't working to find them or don't want others to know about them. Beyond that fact, we also have an opportunity to review errors and non-conformances as part of our assessment of whether our operation is improving or declining in performance. The better we are at counting the number of non-conformances or errors, as well as the methods we choose to fix them, the easier it is over the course of a month, a quarter, or a year to determine if we are having more or fewer errors. This assessment allows us to evaluate the progress of our business. So, it is with that in mind that we want to review what is important for recording errors, root cause analyses, corrections, corrective actions, and preventive actions. Now that we have established that we need to document non-conformances and their corrections, corrective, and preventive actions to demonstrate our ability to correct problems, let's discuss what needs to be recorded. First of all, we need to write down the date and approximately the time in which the non-conformance was discovered. So, if I discover at 8:45 a.m. that a door that should be locked is unlocked, I will record 8:45 as the time of the event. If I can determine when the event occurred, that should be included as well. In this case, an employee may have unlocked that door at 5:30 a.m. during a facility opening, and that is as important as when it was discovered. We also should record the person who discovered the non-conformance. This is important for several reasons. First, we may need to collect additional details about the non-conformance or event, and knowing which employee discovered the issue allows us to have these further discussions. Second, where possible, we should recognize that employee for their identification and reporting of the issue. Providing positive reinforcement of this behavior encourages team members to report potential non-conformances before they become a critical issue. Lastly, in addition to documenting who identified the non-conformance, we should document who caused the deviation if that can be determined. As long as this is not an illegal or fraudulent event, it is not essential that we determine who caused the issue because we can train a group of employees that may have caused the issue, and that will be sufficient to address the issue, even where pinpointing the cause is not possible. Now that we have the when and the who, we want a brief description of what policy, procedure, or work instruction was not followed leading to the event. In my unlocked door example, our security and lockup or unlocking process was not followed, and we will circle in on examining that following completion of the write-up. Next, if a correction is performed, this should be documented in the report. In this example, a correction would be to lock the door and check for signs of theft. Along with the description of the correction, we should also write down if a corrective action was required. This might be changing the door unlocking procedure going forward, or removing that responsibility from the employee that failed to unlock the doors correctly. Lastly, we need to have a manager sign it to make sure we have proof it was presented up the organizational structure. This is part of our culture of food safety, and it is important to make sure the presentation of non-conformances and corrective actions are clear and in writing. If a manager is the person that discovers the non-conformance and is also the person writing up the report, that manager should not be the person signing the document as part of the review process. A separate manager should sign off, or better yet, the facility lead should sign it when possible. Now that we've reviewed the basics of writing up the report, let's look at signing the report. When a non-conformance or corrective action report is signed, that means it was properly communicated to management as part of our culture of food safety. The report on the non-conformance and the resulting correction or corrective action should be written as soon as is possible for the event so we get the facts correct. However, the signing of the report does not necessarily have to be immediate unless it is an urgent issue such as a non-conformance of a key metric or where a major operational or financial problem has occurred. In less urgent non-conformances or corrections and corrective actions, this can be presented to management and signed during regularly scheduled meetings such as production meetings, management reviews, HACCP team meetings, or one-on-ones between management and operational employees. Now I'd like to shift our attention to follow-up documentation actions where corrective actions are undertaken as a response to a non-conformance, and we can here use a new example of an issue in operation. We are going to look at a situation in which the wrong labels were used during the packaging and labeling step for finished jerky. And in this example, we are going to have a mistaken allergen listed that we are going to say was caught before shipment, but would have required a recall if it were discovered after shipment. In this example, we have a significant nonconformance, the use of incorrect labels. And this is a nonconformance that requires both a correction and a separate corrective action. We will also take it to the level of a preventive action in a bit. Here, the labeling correction is going to be relabeling. Depending on how big a run we have in this example, relabeling can be many hours of labor, and all of that would need to be documented. As far as a corrective action, we have to go beyond relabeling since putting on the correct label doesn't address why the wrong labels were used in the first place. We spoke about root cause investigations, and here that would be a very good practice. Did someone print the wrong labels, or were the correct labels printed but someone grabbed incorrect labels? All that should be sorted out as best as possible. After we figure out how it happened, we are going to want to change the process for printing labels to address the cause. I may decide that we have to add an extra sign-off of labels before they can be taken out on the line, or if confusion when printing off multiple product labels is the issue, we can change the policy to only allow for the printing of one set of product labels at a time. Continuing with our jerky example, we need to work through a preventive action as a response. For a preventive action, we are going to use the example of switching to pre-printed bags instead of applied labels for future runs. As we can see when we think through the new packaging situation in place of applied labels, even where we cannot determine what caused the non-conforming of incorrect labels being brought to the line, when we change to pre-printed packaging, we are preventing the circumstances from occurring again. In both corrective actions, when we change our process by having label sign-offs to address the use of incorrect labels, or preventive actions of using pre-printed bags, we adjust the process going forward to make sure that non-conformance is not possible due to changing circumstances. And we need to have a detailed report that is connected to the non-conformance and which will allow the team to revisit the original non-conforming event as well as the correction, corrective action, and preventive action that went with it. As with the non-conformance report, we need the date, the people responsible for the corrective and preventive actions, a detailed explanation of what was changed, and then it needs to be signed by management as part of the culture of food safety. And in the end, that is why we have actions that are called CAPA, or corrective and preventive actions, which is the total action in response to a non-conformance that contains both the corrective action and the preventive action. Once the corrective action and preventive action are set, we have to make revisions to our documents, and we may need to update inspection documents or batch records. In our example, we will have new packaging that needs to be added to our packaging specification registry, as well as work instructions for receiving, checking, and implementing the new pre-printed packages. Because of that, we are going to need to update our revision log for several documents if we have a document control program, and we are also going to need to perform training for folks on the changes to our procedures. Because a corrective action almost always has multiple steps, along with changes to old documents or the creation of new documents, we are going to want to schedule some time to check up on those changes after a period of time to make sure the changes were effective and that they are still being followed. This is one very clear rule for the difference between a correction and a corrective action. A correction is more likely to be a single event and action to fix the issue, where a corrective action should have multiple steps and multiple documented checks after the fact when performed. Thank you for watching. For more food safety training videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel.